The night billionaire Damon Kingsley chose his mistress over his black wife, Amara, he laughed like he had won the world. In front of lawyers, servants, and the woman who had secretly been destroying their marriage, he signed the divorce papers, pushed them across the table, and told Amara she was leaving with nothing. What he did not know was that the quiet woman standing before him was carrying his unborn triplets. What he did not know was that, only hours before, Amara had received the inheritance papers, naming her the sole owner of the trillion-dollar empire that was about to approve his life-changing $8.4 billion deal. But Amara said nothing. She simply removed her wedding ring, placed it beside the papers, and disappeared so completely that Damon's private investigators, security team, and business connections could not find a single trace of her. Months passed. Damon rose higher, celebrated louder, and let his mistress wear the diamonds meant for his wife. Then came his promotion party, the grandest event of his career, where he planned to announce himself as the future face of the company. So he sent Amara an invitation, not out of love, but to humiliate her one final time. But when the ballroom doors opened, every glass froze in midair. Amara entered, glowing, powerful, heavily pregnant with triplets, surrounded by executives, lawyers, and board members who stepped aside for her like royalty. Then the chairman's seat was pulled out, not for Damon, not for his mistress, but for Amara. And when she stood before the microphone and revealed she owned the entire company, Damon's smile died instantly. But what she announced next made him and his mistress fall to their knees, begging for mercy. For 1 second, no one breathed. The orchestra in the corner softened into silence, as if the musicians themselves had forgotten how to move their fingers. Crystal chandeliers scattered gold light across the ballroom ceiling. Cameras from business magazines, financial networks, and society blogs all turned toward the woman Damon Kingsley had called useless in his own home. Amara stood beneath the light like a prophecy arriving late, but perfectly dressed. Her gown was elegant and modest, ivory with long sleeves and a high neckline, its fabric flowing around her with quiet authority. Her hand rested on her rounded belly, not for drama, not for sympathy, but because the 3 lives inside her moved whenever the world became too loud. Behind her stood the board of Elysian Crown Global, the most powerful private company in the world. Its subsidiaries controlled ports, aerospace divisions, medical technology, luxury hotels, defense logistics, clean energy grids, shipping lanes, and a chain of financial institutions so large that governments returned calls when Elysian Crown spoke. For 6 months, Damon had chased the company's approval like a starving man chasing rain. The $8.4 billion deal was supposed to rescue Kingsley Dominion Group from collapsing debt. Damon's father had built the company with arrogance, spectacle, and borrowed money. Damon had inherited the same arrogance, but none of the patience. He was brilliant in a boardroom when people applauded him. He was reckless the moment someone questioned him. And for years, Amara had been the person quietly standing between his pride and disaster. She corrected reports he refused to read. She reviewed contracts while he slept. She remembered names of investors he insulted. She calmed board members he offended. She saved him so many times that he began to believe saving him was her duty. Now she watched him from across the ballroom, and for the first time, Damon looked small. His black tuxedo was flawless, his gold watch bright under the lights, his polished shoes reflecting the marble floor, but his face had lost every color of triumph. His mistress, Celeste Monroe, stood beside him in a sparkling emerald dress, her smile frozen into something stiff and frightened. Celeste had imagined many outcomes for this night. She imagined applause. She imagined cameras. She imagined Damon announcing their engagement after his promotion. She imagined Amara somewhere in the back of the room, dressed plainly, broken by poverty, forced to watch the man who abandoned her rise without her. She had not imagined bowing board members. She had not imagined the chairwoman's seat. She had not imagined Amara's name engraved on the gold place card at the center of the executive table. Amara Vale Kingsley, chairwoman and sole owner, Elysian Crown Global. Damon stared at the card like it was a weapon. Amara, he whispered. The sound of her name in his mouth scraped against the memory of the night he had thrown her away. She remembered the rain against the windows that evening. She remembered the smell of expensive cigars from Damon's study. She remembered the divorce papers already spread on the dining table before she came downstairs, as if he had prepared a performance and simply needed his victim to arrive. His mother had been there, sitting stiffly with pearls around her throat and judgment in her eyes. His younger brother leaned against the bar, pretending not to care. Two lawyers sat with leather folders open. Celeste stood near Damon's chair, one hand resting possessively on the back of it. Amara had worn a simple navy dress. Her hair was pulled back. She had just returned from a private appointment where the doctor told her, with stunned delight, that she was not carrying one baby, but 3. Triplets. The word had made her laugh and cry at once. She had almost called Damon from the hospital parking lot. Her thumb hovered over his number as tears slipped down her face. For a moment, she saw the life she had once prayed for, Damon changing, Damon softening, Damon holding her hands and promising their children would never feel alone. Then another call came through. It was from a law firm in Geneva. The name meant nothing to her at first. Beaumont, Ashford and Rain. The attorney spoke gently, as if carrying a secret too heavy to drop all at once. He asked her to come to their New York office immediately. He said it concerned her late mother's estate. Amara had nearly said her mother left no estate. Her mother, Naomi Vale, had died with a Bible on her nightstand, a sewing machine in the corner, and a locked wooden box Amara had never opened because grief made ordinary objects feel sacred. Naomi had raised Amara alone in a small house with a cracked front step and sunflowers by the fence. She taught her daughter to sit straight, speak clearly, never let cruelty make her cruel, and never confuse a man's wealth with his worth. Naomi had never mentioned Elysian Crown Global. She had never mentioned the old family name hidden behind silence. At the law office, Amara learned why. Her mother had been Naomi Elysian before she ran from the dynasty that wanted to trade her marriage for power. Naomi had fallen in love with a schoolteacher named Samuel Vale, a quiet black man with kind eyes and a habit of buying old books from street vendors. Her father, Alastair Elysian, disowned her for marrying him. But years later, after Samuel died and Naomi refused to return, Alastair watched from a distance as his granddaughter grew into a woman with the one thing his empire lacked, a conscience. He had followed Amara's life quietly. Every scholarship, every job, every paper she wrote, every non-profit she helped. Every time Damon Kingsley was praised for work Amara had actually saved behind closed doors, Alastair noticed. When he died, he left everything to her. All of it. Not shares. Not a trust. Not a ceremonial title. Everything. The attorney slid the documents across the table and said, Mrs. Kingsley, as of 9:00 this morning, you are the controlling owner of Elysian Crown Global. Amara had stared at the papers until the letters blurred. The attorney continued, explaining the holding structures, the voting rights, the board transition, the confidentiality period, the emergency succession clause. His voice became distant under the sound of her own heartbeat. Pregnant with triplets. Owner of $1 trillion empire. Married to a man who had stopped coming home before midnight and smelled of another woman's perfume when he did. By the time she arrived at Damon's mansion that night, she planned to tell him everything. The Barbies first. The inheritance after. She believed, foolishly or faithfully, that there might still be something human left inside him. Then she saw Celeste. Then she saw the papers. Then Damon smiled. I have already signed my part, he said, tapping the pages. You should be grateful. I am letting you keep the small account in your name and the car. I could have made this ugly. Celeste laughed softly. Amara looked at Damon's hand. The hand that had once held hers in a courthouse when they married with no cameras and no empire around them. He had been different then, or maybe she had only seen what she wanted to see. Back then, Damon was not yet the heir everyone feared and flattered. He was a young executive with ambition burning in his eyes and panic hidden behind expensive confidence. Amara met him at a charity finance panel where he forgot a key statistic during his speech, and she corrected it from the audience without embarrassing him. Afterward, he found her near the coffee table. "You saved me," he said. "No," she replied, "I saved the audience from a wrong number." He laughed harder than the joke deserved. For months, he pursued her with flowers, handwritten notes, and midnight conversations about the future. He told her she was the only person who spoke to him like he was human instead of inevitable. He took her to meet his father and whispered before they entered the mansion, "Do not let them scare you." They had not scared her. They had studied her. His mother, Vivienne Kingsley, looked at Amara's skin before she looked at her face. His father asked where she went to school, how much debt she had, what her parents did, whether she understood the pressures of their world. Damon squeezed her hand under the table, but he did not defend her as strongly as he promised he would. That was the first crack. Amara saw it. She ignored it. Love can make a warning look like a challenge. Over the years, she turned Damon's chaos into strategy. When Kingsley Dominion nearly lost a Middle East infrastructure bid because Damon insulted a minister's nephew, Amara spent 3 nights rebuilding the proposal and a morning teaching Damon how to apologize without sounding like he was swallowing poison. When investors threatened to leave after discovering hidden liabilities, Amara found a restructuring path that kept the company alive. Damon took the credit. She watched him accept applause, then kiss her forehead later and say, "You know, I could not do any of this without you." At first, it felt intimate. Later, it became theft. Celeste entered during the worst year of their marriage. She was hired as a brand strategist, sharp-tongued, beautiful, and hungry in a way that made every room feel like a ladder. She learned quickly that Damon liked admiration more than truth. Amara gave him truth. Celeste gave him mirrors. "You are too big for ordinary loyalty," Celeste once told him at a company gala, not knowing Amara stood behind a marble column close enough to hear. Some women want to soften powerful men because they cannot stand the light. Damon did not correct her. He laughed. That laugh became familiar. It followed Amara through hallways, through dinners, through nights when Damon said he was working late and came home with lipstick on his collar, careless because he wanted her to notice but not brave enough to confess. By the time the divorce papers appeared, Amara had already cried the easy tears. So when Damon told her to sign, she did not scream. She did not announce the Barbies. She did not reveal the inheritance. She picked up the pen. Celeste tilted her head. "You are being very mature about this." Amara signed 1 page, then another, then another. Damon leaned back satisfied. "Good, no drama." Amara placed the pen down gently. "No," she said, "no drama." She removed her ring and put it beside the papers. Vivienne Kingsley frowned. "That ring belongs to our family." Amara looked at her. "Then it should stay where it is loved most." She walked upstairs, packed 1 small suitcase, and left through the rain. No one followed her. Not Damon. Not his mother. Not even a servant, though 3 of them cried quietly after she passed. At the gates, her driver asked where to go. Amara looked back at the mansion where she had spent years becoming invisible inside rooms she helped hold together. Then she touched her belly. "The airport," she said, "private terminal." By sunrise, Amara Kingsley was gone. Damon expected her to call within a week. She did not. He expected her lawyer to negotiate for more. She did not. He expected gossip blogs to report sightings of her in cheap hotels. sad restaurants, desperate boutiques, anything that confirmed the story he had written in his mind. Nothing. It irritated him at first. Then it unsettled him. Then it embarrassed him. Because powerful men like Damon Kingsley did not like being unable to locate what they had discarded. It made the discarded thing seem less like trash and more like evidence. He hired investigators. They tracked old friends, bank accounts, phone records, medical appointments, travel manifests. Every trail ended cleanly, not erased by panic, but sealed by power. She had help, one investigator said. Damon stood in his office, overlooking Manhattan, jaw tight. From who? I do not know, Mr. Kingsley. Whoever it is, they are above our reach. Damon fired him. Then he hired another. The answer stayed the same. Celeste tried to comfort him at first. She wore Amara's diamonds to dinner and stretched her fingers under restaurant lights, waiting for photographers to notice. She moved into Damon's mansion and redecorated the rooms Amara had chosen, replacing warm paintings and family photographs with cold sculpture and mirrored walls. She is hiding because she is ashamed, Celeste said one night, pouring champagne into glasses Amara had bought in Venice. Let her disappear, you won. Damon wanted to believe that. But strange things began happening after Amara left. The $8.4 billion Elysian Crown deal, once nearly guaranteed, slowed. Due diligence expanded. Questions became sharper. Auditors requested files Damon did not know existed. Elysian Crown's representatives stopped taking informal dinners with Celeste. Board liaisons who once smiled politely now responded with short emails and formal language. Damon's promotion, which depended on the deal closing, was delayed twice. His father, Harrison Kingsley, summoned him to the old family office on Fifth Avenue. Harrison Kingsley was a man built from discipline and disappointment. He had white hair, cold eyes, and a voice that made even compliments sound like warnings. Behind his desk hung portraits of Kingsley men who had expanded railroads, oil storage, shipping contracts, defense procurement, and political friendships into a dynasty. None of them was smiling. You told me Elysian Crown was secured, Harrison said. It is, Damon replied. Then why are they asking about debt covenants from 6 years ago? Standard review. They are asking about Amara. Damon's hand paused on the chair. Harrison watched him. Why? Damon shrugged too quickly. She was involved in some internal strategy, nothing important. Harrison's eyes narrowed. Do not lie to me badly, it insults us both. Damon looked away. His father leaned forward. Your wife was the only person in that house who understood how to keep your worst instincts from appearing on paper. I told you once not to humiliate her publicly. You also told me she was not one of us. I said the world would treat her that way, Harrison snapped. I did not tell you to become the world. For the first time in years, Damon felt like a boy standing outside a locked room. She signed, he said, colder now. She left, it is over. Harrison opened a folder and tossed a photograph across the desk. It showed Amara from years before, sitting at a charity conference table beside an old man Damon did not recognize. The old man was looking at her with a strange expression, almost pride. Do you know who that is? Harrison asked. Damon glanced at it. No. Alastair Elysian. The name landed heavily. Damon looked again. He rarely appeared in public during his final years, Harrison continued, but he attended that conference. Your wife spoke for 7 minutes about ethical capital deployment in communities private equity usually drains. Elysian Crown created an entire social impact division 6 months later. Damon swallowed. You never asked yourself why the most secretive titan in global business kept showing up near your wife's work. Damon forced a laugh. That means nothing. Harrison sat back. Maybe, but in business, son, Nothing is usually what fools call something before it destroys them. The words followed Damon out of the office. That night he found Celeste in Amara's old dressing room, trying on another necklace from the safe. "Take that off," he said. Celeste turned, surprised. "Excuse me." "It was hers." Celeste's eyes hardened. "No, it was yours. Everything she had came from you." Damon should have agreed. Instead, he saw Amara in memory, standing barefoot in that same room after a gala, removing earrings with tired fingers while he ranted about a board member who challenged him. She had said softly, "Damon, not every person who corrects you is your enemy." He had snapped back, "That is something people say when they have never had real power." She had looked at him for a long moment and answered, "No, it is something people say when they have had to survive powerful people." He had forgotten that line until now. Celeste removed the necklace slowly. "You are becoming sentimental," she said. "I am becoming concerned." "About Amara," she laughed. "She is gone." Damon looked toward the dark window. "That is the part I do not understand." While Damon unraveled, Amara was learning how to carry an empire. She had not gone to some hidden island to weep, though there were nights she wept until sleep took pity on her. She stayed first in Geneva, then in a secure estate outside Lausanne that belonged to a Lysian crown. The house sat above a lake so still that mornings looked painted. Her first weeks there were a blur of doctors, lawyers, board briefings, and grief. Triplets made everything more urgent. Her medical team insisted on rest. Her legal team insisted on caution. The company insisted on leadership. Amara stood in the middle of all of it, still hearing Damon's laugh in dreams. At night, she opened her mother's wooden box. Inside were letters Naomi had never sent. Some were addressed to Alastair Elysian, some were addressed to Amara. "My daughter," one letter began, "if you ever learn where I came from, do not mistake silence for shame. I left because wealth without love becomes a cage, and I wanted you to know windows before you knew walls." Amara read until tears covered the ink. Another letter contained a photograph of Naomi as a young woman standing in front of Elysian Crown's original headquarters. Her chin lifted in the same way Amara lifted hers when refusing to cry in public. There was also a note in Alastair's handwriting, written years later. "Naomi, I was wrong. I built towers and lost my child. I controlled nations and could not apologize to my own daughter. If Amara will not know me, let her at least inherit what should have protected you." Amara sat with those words for a long time. Inheritance was not joy at first. It was weight. It was history. It was a door opening into rooms full of ghosts. The board expected a figurehead. Some hoped she would sign documents, smile for legacy portraits, and let the old machinery continue under familiar hands. They underestimated her because people had always underestimated her quietly before regretting it loudly. Her first board meeting lasted 9 hours. A director named Malcolm Reed explained the Kingsley Dominion deal with the dry confidence of a man who believed money made morality optional. The $8.4 billion contract gives us strategic access to urban redevelopment zones, port modernization, and defense-adjacent logistics, he said. Damon Kingsley is difficult but useful. Amara looked at the folder. Damon's photograph was clipped to the front page. Beside it, the summary described him as visionary, aggressive, socially influential, politically connected. Nothing about late-night rages. Nothing about unpaid subcontractors. Nothing about the employees Amara once quietly compensated from her personal funds when Damon delayed hardship payments to improve quarterly optics. Nothing about Celeste feeding stories to reporters to make Amara look unstable before the divorce. "Who prepared this character assessment?" Amara asked. "External consultants," Malcolm said. "Were household staff interviewed?" The boardroom shifted. Malcolm blinked. Household staff. Yes. Chairwoman, this is a corporate infrastructure deal, not a domestic inquiry. Amara closed the folder. A man's treatment of people he thinks cannot hurt him is not domestic, it is diagnostic. An older woman at the far end of the table smiled faintly. Her name was Josephine Adami, head of global ethics and risk, and she had been the only board member who looked at Amara that first day without measuring how easily she could be managed. Josephine leaned forward. I agree with the chairwoman. Malcolm's mouth tightened. Amara turned the page. Kingsley Dominion's debt exposure is understated. Their subcontractor litigation is softened. Their procurement chain has vulnerabilities, and these community displacement clauses are unacceptable. You reviewed the full appendix, another director asked. Yes, it is 800 pages. I read quickly when someone is asking me to risk billions. No one laughed. Over the next months, Amara became what Damon had never believed she could be without him, unstoppable. She rose before sunrise, attended medical appointments, learned the empire's structure division by division, and quietly ordered a full ethical audit of the Kingsley deal. She froze informal approvals. She placed Josephine in charge of a special review committee. She met workers from towns Kingsley Dominion had bulldozed through legal loopholes. She spoke with engineers who feared Damon's cost-cutting would cause disasters 5 years after ribbon-cutting ceremonies ended. And every file seemed to whisper the same warning. Damon was not merely arrogant. He was dangerous with scale. One afternoon, during her 5th month of pregnancy, Amara sat by the lake with a tablet balanced on her knees. The Barbies shifted as if arguing among themselves. She smiled despite exhaustion. You 3 have opinions already, she murmured. Her assistant, Lena Ortiz, approached with a sealed envelope. This arrived through the New York office, Lena said, from Damon Kingsley. Amara's body went still. She had blocked his calls months before, changed her number, redirected all legal communication. Damon had sent messages through lawyers, then associates, then old friends who suddenly remembered her kindness only when he needed access to it. She opened the envelope. Inside was an invitation on thick black card embossed with gold. Damon Kingsley's promotion celebration. A private announcement hosted by Kingsley Dominion Group in partnership with Elysian Crown Global. Amara stared at the words. Partnership. The arrogance stole her breath. Elysian Crown had not approved the deal. Damon had simply begun speaking as though approval was inevitable, turning assumption into pressure. The invitation listed him as incoming Global Strategic Chairman, a title dependent on the contract he did not yet have. At the bottom, handwritten in Damon's bold script, were the words, Come see what you lost. Lena read Amara's face carefully. Should I have security discard it? Amara's hand moved to her belly. For months, she had considered letting Damon collapse privately, a cancelled contract, a quiet notice, a legal severing so clean the public would never know how close he came to glory. But he had invoked Elysian Crown's name without approval. He had used her company as decoration for his lie. And he had invited her to be humiliated in a room full of people who once praised him for victories she made possible. Amara looked out at the lake. In the reflection, clouds moved like slow ships across the water. Her mother's words returned, never let cruelty make you cruel. But her grandfather's words came too, what should have protected you? Amara folded the invitation. No, she said, we will attend. Lena's eyebrows rose, we. Amara looked back at the house, where lawyers, advisors, medical staff, and security teams had turned her solitude into a command center. The board, she said, the review committee, legal, ethics, communications. A small smile touched Lena's face. That is quite a guest list. Damon wanted witnesses. Amara placed the invitation on the table. We will give him witnesses. In New York, Celeste treated the promotion party like a coronation. She approved floral arrangements, seating charts, camera angles, champagne towers, and a dramatic stage backdrop with the Kingsley Dominion crest beside the Elysian Crown emblem. No one from Elysian Crown had authorized the emblem, but Celeste considered permission a detail for smaller people. We need Amara seated close enough for the cameras, Celeste told the event planner. Not at the main tables, somewhere visible but not important. The planner hesitated. Mrs. Kingsley has not confirmed attendance. Former Mrs. Kingsley, Celeste corrected. And she will come. Women like that cannot resist watching what they lost. Damon stood near the window, half listening. He had changed since Amara vanished, not enough to become humble, but enough to become haunted. Some mornings, he woke convinced he heard her voice downstairs. Once, he walked into the kitchen, expecting to see her making tea in the blue robe she wore on quiet Sundays. Celeste hated those moments. She had won the man and inherited the ghost. Damon, she said sharply. He turned. What? The speech, you need to mention loyalty. Say something about people who stand beside you when others walk away. Damon frowned, too obvious. That is the point. He picked up the draft and read the lines she had written. To those who left when the climb became steep, thank you for proving they were never meant for the summit. He placed it down. No. Celeste's expression tightened. Why are you protecting her? I am protecting the tone of the evening. She left you. Damon laughed once without humor. Did she? Celeste crossed her arms. You divorced her. Yes. Then stop acting like she took something from you. Damon said nothing. Because lately, that was exactly how it felt. Not because he missed her, he told himself. Missing was too soft a word and too humiliating an admission. He simply needed closure. He needed to see her reduced to an ordinary scale. He needed proof that the woman who walked out with one suitcase had not somehow become larger in absence than she had ever been in his house. He needed her to arrive at the party and look wounded. Then he could breathe again. The morning of the celebration, Harrison Kingsley called. Cancel the party, his father said. Damon stood in his dressing room while a tailor adjusted his tuxedo sleeve. Good morning to you too. I heard you used Elysian Crown's emblem on the event materials. It is strategic positioning. It is fraud-adjacent stupidity. Damon waved the tailor away. The deal will close. No, Damon, it may not. You are being dramatic. I am being experienced. Elysian Crown has not confirmed attendance. They have not approved the final terms. Their ethics committee requested a closed session yesterday. Damon's jaw tightened. With who? They did not say. Celeste entered, carrying cufflinks. Damon turned away from the phone, but Harrison's voice cut through the room. Do not bring that woman tonight. Celeste froze. Damon looked at her, then back toward the mirror. Celeste is my partner. She is a liability with perfume. Celeste's face flushed. Damon lowered his voice. Do not speak about her like that. I spoke the same way about your recklessness before it became expensive. You are not in charge tonight. Harrison paused. No, he said quietly, and that is what frightens me. The call ended. Celeste forced a smile and approached Damon with the cufflinks. Your father is old. Old men fear bold moves. Damon looked at himself in the mirror. For a moment, he imagined Amara behind him, adjusting his collar before a speech years ago. She had never praised him blindly. She would smooth his lapel and say, remember, confidence is not volume. Let the numbers speak. Celeste fastened one cufflink and whispered, tonight, everyone will see you are right to choose me. Damon smiled, but it did not reach his eyes. The ballroom filled by 8. Reporters lined the velvet ropes. Senators, Bankers, celebrities, executives, and old money families moved through the space in clusters of diamonds and whispers. A 20-foot digital screen displayed Damon's image beside renderings of futuristic ports and shining city skylines. Beneath it, in gold letters, were the words, "The future belongs to builders." Celeste stood near Damon, accepting congratulations as if she had personally negotiated the deal. People complimented her dress, her beauty, her strength through controversy. She fed them graceful lines about resilience, partnership, and the courage to choose happiness. No one mentioned Amara directly. They did not need to. Her absence was part of the entertainment. At 8:45, Damon took the stage. Applause rose around him, rich and obedient. He began with charm. He thanked partners, family, investors, and those who believed in Kingsley Dominion when lesser minds doubted. He spoke of legacy, expansion, transformation. He spoke of the pending Elysian Crown partnership as though the ink had dried. Near the front, Harrison Kingsley sat with his hands folded and his mouth set in a grim line. Damon noticed, but continued. "This company," Damon said, "has always belonged to those brave enough to claim the future before others can see it." Celeste beamed. Then the ballroom doors opened. It was not loud. There was no dramatic crash, no shout, no theatrical music. Just the smooth opening of tall doors and the sudden failure of every conversation in the room. Amara entered slowly because her doctors had warned her not to rush, and because queens do not hurry toward thrones already waiting for them. Two security officers walked a respectful distance behind her. Lena Ortiz was at her right, Josephine Ademi at her left. Behind them came the General Counsel of Elysian Crown, the Chief Financial Officer, the Head of Global Operations, the Ethics Review Committee, and 6 board members whose faces appeared regularly in financial magazines that Damon pretended not to study. Cameras pivoted. Whispers broke open. "Is that Amara? She is pregnant." "Triplets," someone said. "Why is Josephine Ademi with her? Is that the Elysian Crown board?" Damon stopped speaking. The microphone carried his silence. Celeste's smile collapsed first at the edges, then entirely. Amara did not look at Damon immediately. She let her eyes move across the ballroom, noting the unauthorized Elysian Crown emblem, the staged partnership display, the reporters, the investors, the guests waiting for spectacle. Then she saw the seating arrangement. There, near a side table, half hidden behind a column, was a small place card. Amara veiled. No title. No respect. A final insult, prepared for public consumption. Lena saw it too and looked furious. Amara touched her arm gently. "Leave it," she whispered. A man in a black suit hurried forward, pale and sweating. It was the event director. "Mrs. Kingsley." "Ms. Vale," Lena corrected. The man swallowed. "Ms. Vale, we were not informed you would be bringing." "The owners of the emblem displayed behind your stage?" Josephine asked. The man's mouth opened, then closed. At the main executive table, several Kingsley board members stood uncertainly. They knew enough about power to recognize when it had entered the room wearing silence. Harrison Kingsley rose. He looked at Amara for a long moment. Something like regret passed through his eyes. Not apology, not yet, but the knowledge that the world had shifted and he had seen the fault line too late. "Ms. Vale," he said. Amara inclined her head. "Mr. Kingsley." Damon finally stepped down from the stage. "Amara," he said, louder this time, forcing warmth into his voice. "This is unexpected." She looked at him. The last time they stood this close, he had been laughing beside divorce papers. Now his eyes dropped to her stomach. His face changed. It was small, but she saw it. The calculation, the shock, the dawning horror. "You are pregnant," he said. The room heard him. Celeste heard him. Photographers heard him. Amara's hand rested over the place where one of the Barbies pressed a foot against her side. Yes. Damon's throat moved. How far along? She did not answer. Celeste stepped forward, voice sharp enough to cut glass. This is not the place for personal theatrics. Josephine turned her head slowly toward Celeste. Then perhaps you should stop performing. A few people gasped. Celeste's eyes flashed. And you are? Josephine Adami, Vice Chair of Elysian Crown Global. Celeste's confidence faltered. Damon stared past Josephine at the others. Why is Elysian Crown here? He asked. Amara looked toward the stage. Because you invited us. I invited you. Yes, she said, you did. There was a beat of silence. Then Amara walked toward the main table. The chair at the center, the one reserved for Damon after his announcement, remained empty. Its gold-backed frame gleamed beneath the chandelier. Damon moved as if to reach it first, but Harrison's voice stopped him. Damon! Damon turned. His father gave the smallest shake of his head. By then, an Elysian Crown board member had already pulled out the chair for Amara. The ballroom watched her sit. The image traveled through every camera in the room, the discarded wife seated where the billionaire expected to be crowned. Amara did not sit like someone stealing a place. She sat like someone finally occupying one that had always belonged to her. Damon's voice dropped. What is this? Lena placed a leather folder on the table before Amara. The folder bore the Elysian Crown seal. Amara opened it. Mr. Kingsley, she said, formal now, before you continue making public statements regarding a partnership that does not exist, Elysian Crown Global will clarify its position. Damon's face tightened. You do not speak for Elysian Crown. The CFO, a silver-haired man named Benoit Caron, stepped forward. She does. Celeste let out a small laugh, desperate and disbelieving. No, she does not. Josephine smiled. Ms. Amara Vale is the sole controlling owner and chairwoman of Elysian Crown Global. Silence hit harder than shouting could have. Someone dropped a glass. It shattered across marble. Damon looked at Amara, then at Josephine, then at Harrison, as though one of them might rescue reality before it finished collapsing. That is impossible, he said. Amara turned a page in the folder. I thought so too at first. His eyes burned. Since when? Since the morning before I signed our divorce papers. Celeste made a sound, half gasp, half denial. Damon stepped back. The ballroom stirred with whispers. The morning before. Before he laughed. Before he told her she would leave with nothing. Before Celeste touched his shoulder and called Amara mature. Before the Kingsley family watched a trillion-dollar chairwoman walk out carrying triplets and one suitcase. Harrison closed his eyes. Amara stood again, carefully, and walked to the microphone. No one stopped her. Damon's speech remained on the teleprompter behind her, but the words looked ridiculous now, little ambitions crawling beneath a giant truth. She faced the room. My name is Amara Vale, she said. Some of you knew me as Damon Kingsley's wife. Some of you knew me as the quiet woman at his side. Some of you did not know me at all, though you applauded work I completed in rooms where I was not credited. Damon flinched. I did not come tonight to discuss my marriage, she continued. That ended privately, even though Mr. Kingsley attempted to turn its aftermath into public entertainment. Celeste looked toward the side exits, but cameras had formed a wall. I came because Kingsley Dominion Group has repeatedly represented a pending partnership with Elysian Crown Global in ways our board did not approve. Tonight's event materials display our emblem without authorization. Public remarks made from this stage implied a completed agreement where none exists. That alone requires correction. Damon moved toward her. Amara, do not do this here. She looked at him calmly. You chose here. He stopped. The words landed with such perfect weight that even those who had not known the story understood enough. Amara looked back at the audience. For the past 6 months, Elysian Crown has conducted an expanded review of Kingsley Dominion Group. That review examined finances, labor practices, procurement chains, community impact reports, executive conduct, and risk exposure. The findings were serious. Celeste's hand gripped Damon's arm. Amara continued. We discovered manipulated community consent records. We discovered delayed subcontractor payments hidden behind shell scheduling. We discovered internal communications describing displaced families as cost noise. We discovered attempts by Kingsley Dominion representatives to pressure Elysian Crown staff through gifts, favors, and implied future access. Damon's voice cracked. Those are allegations. Amara turned a page. They are documented. A screen behind her changed. Damon's smiling portrait disappeared. In its place appeared a clean legal notice. Kingsley Dominion Strategic Partnership, terminated pending public accountability review. The ballroom erupted. Reporters shouted questions. Investors stood. Damon lunged toward the stage, but Harrison grabbed his arm. Do not make it worse, his father hissed. Damon shook him off. You cannot terminate it, you need us. Amara looked at him with something almost gentle, and that gentleness terrified him more than anger. No, Damon, we never needed you. He stared at her. For years, she had softened sentences to spare him. She had waited until guests left to correct him. She had handed him language that made his worst ideas sound thoughtful. He had mistaken her restraint for weakness. Now he heard what her truth sounded like, without mercy, dressing it up for his ego. Amara turned to the room again. Elysian Crown will not proceed with the $8.4 billion agreement under Damon Kingsley's leadership. However, because thousands of workers and communities should not suffer for executive misconduct, we are offering a conditional restructuring path. Damon blinked. Harrison's head lifted. Our proposal is as follows, Amara said. Kingsley Dominion Group must remove Damon Kingsley from all executive authority connected to Elysian Crown projects. The company must establish an independent worker payment protection fund. It must submit to external oversight for 7 years. It must publicly correct all false partnership claims made tonight. And it must cooperate with our ethics review regarding internal misconduct. Celeste whispered, Damon, do something. But Damon was staring at Amara like a man watching the ocean take back land he built on stolen sand. And Celeste Monroe, Amara added. Celeste froze. Amara did not raise her voice. Ms. Monroe's communications with external media, consultants, and certain Kingsley Dominion staff have been included in our review. We found evidence of deliberate reputation attacks, false briefings, and attempts to influence deal optics through personal defamation. Celeste's face drained. That is a lie, she said. Josephine lifted a tablet. We have the emails. Celeste looked at Damon. For the first time, he did not look back. Amara's eyes stayed on her. Elysian Crown will be referring those materials to the appropriate professional bodies and civil counsel. You built your rise on whispers, Ms. Monroe. You may answer now in rooms where whispers are not enough. Celeste stumbled one step backward. The mistress who had laughed at divorce papers now looked as if the floor had opened beneath her. Damon moved toward Amara, lowering his voice as if intimacy could still be summoned by command. Amara, he said, we need to talk privately. She looked down at his hand as he reached for her wrist. A security officer stepped forward. Damon stopped just before touching her. The room saw that too. Once Damon could enter a room and every person shifted around his hunger. Now even his hand required permission. "Please," he said. That word created a new silence. Damon Kingsley did not say please. He ordered, demanded, charmed, threatened, negotiated, but he did not plead. Amara studied him. "How many times," she asked softly, "did I ask you to speak to me privately before you made our pain a performance?" His lips parted. "How many times did I ask you who she was, and you told me I was insecure?" Celeste's eyes flicked toward the cameras. "How many times did I hand you the truth, Damon, and watch you choose the person who applauded your lies?" He swallowed. "I did not know." "No," Amara said, "you did not care." The words struck harder because they were not shouted. Damon's gaze dropped again to her belly. "Are they mine?" The entire ballroom seemed to recoil. Amara's face changed for the first time, not into rage, into disappointment so deep it made Harrison look away. "You should be ashamed that the question came before the apology." Damon's knees weakened. "I am sorry," he said quickly. "Amara, I am sorry. I was angry. I was confused. Celeste." Celeste spun toward him. "Do not you dare." Damon ignored her. "She got in my head. She made everything." "No," Amara said. He stopped. "She did not make you cruel. She gave your cruelty an audience." Celeste's mouth trembled. Damon's breathing turned shallow. In the space of 20 minutes, his promotion party had become a trial, his mistress a liability, his father a witness, his company a dependent, and his discarded wife the only person who could decide whether anything remained. Then Harrison Kingsley rose. Slowly, under the weight of age and consequence, he walked toward Amara. Every camera followed. Damon stared at his father. "Dad, what are you doing?" Harrison stopped before Amara and bowed his head. "Ms. Vale," he said, voice rough, "on behalf of my family, I apologize, not as strategy, not as performance. I saw too much and corrected too little." Vivienne Kingsley, seated near the front in pearls and pride, stiffened as if apology were a social disease. Amara regarded Harrison carefully. "I accept that you have said it," she replied. "What you do next will decide what it means." Harrison nodded once. Then he turned to the room. "I will recommend to the Kingsley Dominion Board that Damon Kingsley be removed from Project Authority immediately, and that the conditions from Elysian Crown be accepted in full." Damon looked as though his father had struck him. "You cannot," he said. Harrison's voice hardened. "I can. I should have done it years ago." Celeste grabbed Damon's arm. "Say something, stop him." Damon looked at her, and in that moment, the truth of their relationship finally stood naked between them. Celeste had loved his height because she planned to climb it. Damon had loved her praise because it helped him avoid the mirror. Now the height was collapsing, and the praise had nowhere to stand. "You told me she was nothing," Celeste hissed. Damon laughed once, broken. "I told myself that." Celeste stepped away from him as if his failure were contagious. But Amara was not finished. She returned to the microphone. "There is one more matter." Damon closed his eyes. Amara's voice remained steady. "When I left my marriage, I chose silence because I wanted peace. But silence is often misread by people who depend on others being too wounded to answer. So let the record show this. I did not leave because I was defeated. I left because my children deserved to be carried somewhere their mother was not being humiliated." The room softened. Even reporters lowered their devices slightly. "My mother once told me that dignity is not proven by how much pain you can tolerate, but by the moment you stop calling pain love." Her hand moved over her belly. "These children will not inherit bitterness from me. They will inherit truth, protection, and a name no one gets to use as leverage." Damon whispered, "Amara." She turned to him. "You will know them if the court and their well-being allow it. Not because you are entitled to the parts of me you rejected, but because children are not weapons. They are lives, and if you want to be near them, you will become safe enough to deserve that nearness. Damon's eyes filled, but Amara did not soften. Compassion did not require surrender. That was the lesson she had learned in the months after leaving him. She could wish him better without handing him the knife again. She could protect her children without teaching them hatred. She could break a cycle without pretending it had not hurt. Celeste suddenly dropped to her knees. It was not graceful, it was not noble, it was panic in designer fabric. "Please," she cried, "please, Miss Vale, do not send those emails. My career will be ruined." Amara looked at her. The room held its breath. Celeste clasped her hands together. "I was wrong, I was jealous. Damon told me you were cold. He told me you trapped him, I thought." "No," Amara said quietly, "you hoped." Celeste sobbed harder. "You hoped I was weak enough to be erased. You hoped my silence meant there would be no record. You hoped being chosen by a married man made you powerful, when all it made you was useful to his cowardice." Celeste bowed her head. "Please," she whispered, "have mercy." Then Damon, as if seeing his entire future vanish behind sealed doors, lowered himself too. Not fully at first. Pride resisted the movement like rusted metal, but the cameras, the board, his father, the investors, the unborn children, the empire, the woman he had mocked, all of it pressed down until his knees touched marble. "Amara," he said, voice breaking, "please do not destroy me." For years he had stood above her in arguments because height made him feel right. Now he looked up and discovered that power had never been the same as greatness. Amara stepped away from the microphone and stood before them. The image would become famous by morning. The billionaire and his mistress on their knees. The pregnant chairwoman standing calm above them. But those who were close enough saw that Amara did not look victorious in the shallow way gossip would claim. She looked tired. She looked sad. She looked like someone closing a door she once painted with hope. "I am not destroying you," she said. "I am removing the protection my silence gave you." Damon shook his head. "I will change." "I hope you do." "Then help me." "I did," Amara said, "for years." He had no answer. She turned to Josephine. "Proceed with the filings. Offer the board 48 hours to accept restructuring. Refer Ms. Monroe's materials through legal channels. Issue the public correction tonight." Josephine nodded. "Yes, Chairwoman." The word rang through the room. Chairwoman. Not wife. Not ex-wife. Not mistress's rival. Not abandoned woman. Chairwoman. Amara looked once more at Damon. "Do not contact me directly again. My counsel will handle everything." Then she walked away from the stage. The crowd parted before her. No one touched her, no one blocked her, no one dared reduce her to spectacle while she moved with the full authority of a woman who had survived being underestimated and decided not to make it her permanent address. Harrison Kingsley watched her go with a grief he had earned. Vivienne sat frozen, pearls shining at her throat like small, useless moons. Celeste remained on the floor until a security guard quietly asked her to stand. Damon did not move. The promotion party ended without a promotion. By midnight, every financial channel in the country had the story. By morning, Kingsley Dominion's stock had plunged, then stabilized only after Harrison announced Damon's emergency removal from all Elysian Crown negotiations. 3 board members resigned. 2 internal investigations opened. Subcontractors who had waited months for payment received emergency disbursements from the newly created Protection Fund. Communities once dismissed as cost noise were invited into renegotiation sessions with independent advocates present. Celeste's emails leaked in summary, not as gossip, but as evidence in formal filings. Brands dropped her. Consultants denied knowing her. The same society pages that once praised her elegance now described her as a cautionary tale in ambition without ethics. Damon disappeared from public view. For 3 weeks, he stayed in the mansion that no longer felt like victory. The mirrors Celeste installed reflected too much. The rooms Amara decorated had been stripped, but somehow the absence of her taste accused him more loudly than her presence ever had. One afternoon, he found a box in the library. It had been overlooked during Celeste's redecorating because it was plain and tucked behind old annual reports. Inside were handwritten notes, drafts, annotated contracts, and strategy memos in Amara's careful script. His speeches, his investor letters, his crisis responses, his triumphs. Page after page bore her fingerprints. On top was a note she had written years ago but never given him. Damon, you are not weak when you listen. You are only weak when you need everyone else to be smaller so you can feel tall. He sat on the floor and read it until the words stopped looking like accusation and started looking like a map he had refused to follow. For the first time, Damon understood that regret was not the same as redemption. Regret wanted pain to stop. Redemption wanted truth to start. He called his lawyer and asked what boundaries Amara had set regarding the children. The lawyer read them carefully: counseling, parenting education, no direct contact, financial support through court-approved channels, independent review before any visitation after birth. Damon wanted to object. Then he remembered Amara's voice. Children are not weapons, they are lives. He signed the first set of agreements without protest. Months later, Amara gave birth to 2 girls and 1 boy. The world did not learn their names immediately because Amara protected them fiercely. The announcement from Elysian Crown was brief and elegant, thanking the medical team and asking for privacy. Flowers arrived from presidents, queens, CEOs, schoolchildren from communities her new housing initiative supported, and 3 former Kingsley household staff members who included a handwritten note. We always knew you were the light in that house. Amara cried over that note longer than she cried over any headline. Motherhood arrived with sleepless nights, tiny fingers, soft cries, and a love so enormous it frightened her. She held each child and thought of Naomi. She thought of the cracked front step, the sunflowers, the letters, the woman who had chosen love over dynasty and still somehow led her daughter back to power without letting power become her god. One evening, as rain touched the windows of her New York penthouse, Lena brought her another envelope. This one was not black and gold. It was simple white. From Damon. Amara almost refused it. Then she opened it because healing was not pretending the past had no mail. Inside was a letter. No excuses, no demands, no request to see her. Only words. Amara, I am sorry for the years I made you carry what I called leadership. I am sorry for turning your love into labor and your silence into permission. I am sorry for asking if the children were mine before I asked if you were safe. I am not asking you to forgive me. I am writing because the truth should exist somewhere outside my shame. I have begun counseling. I stepped down from the board entirely. I am learning how much of my life was performance. I do not know if I will become worthy of knowing them. I will try anyway. Without making that effort your burden. Damon. Amara read it twice. Then she placed it in a drawer. She did not cry. She did not smile. She simply returned to the nursery, where her children slept beneath a mobile of tiny golden stars. Years from then, people would still tell the story of the night Damon Kingsley invited his ex-wife to watch his rise, and instead witnessed her reveal the throne beneath his feet had belonged to her all along. They would exaggerate some parts. They would say she smiled when he fell. She did not. They would say revenge made her powerful. It did not. Power had been there before revenge ever entered the room. It was in the girl Naomi raised to speak clearly. It was in the young woman who corrected a billionaire's son without fear. It was in the wife who gave grace until grace became a cage. It was in the mother who walked away before her children could learn that humiliation was normal. And it was in the chairwoman who understood that mercy without accountability is just permission for harm to repeat. On the first anniversary of the failed promotion party, Elysian Crown opened the Naomi Vale Center for Women and Children in Harlem. It provided housing support, legal aid, childcare, financial literacy programs, and emergency relocation for women leaving unsafe or degrading homes. Amara attended the opening in a cream suit with her triplets nearby under careful security, each child held by trusted family friends. Reporters asked if the center was inspired by her divorce. Amara looked at the building, at the women waiting inside, at the painted mural of sunflowers along the entrance wall. It was inspired by my mother, she said, and by every woman who needed somewhere to go before the world believed she deserved protection. A reporter shouted one more question. Ms. Vale, do you consider what happened to Damon Kingsley revenge? Amara paused. Across the street, cars moved through afternoon light. Somewhere in the crowd, Harrison Kingsley stood quietly, older now, humbler, invited not as family, but as a donor after meeting every condition Amara's foundation required. Damon was not there. He had not earned that place yet. Celeste was gone from public life, rebuilding somewhere far away from cameras that no longer loved her. Amara thought of the night of the divorce, the ring on the table, the rain, the Barbies unknown to everyone but her, the inheritance papers folded in her bag like thunder waiting for its season. Then she answered. No, she said, revenge is when you become like the people who hurt you so they can feel what you felt. I did not want Damon to feel my pain. I wanted him to stop profiting from it. The quote circled the world within hours. But Amara did not read most of the articles. That evening she went home, removed her heels, and sat on the nursery floor while her children crawled over her lap and tugged at her sleeves. One of her daughters grabbed her necklace and babbled with great seriousness. Her son pressed a sticky hand to her cheek. Her other daughter laughed at nothing, the sudden bright laugh of a child who had never had to earn tenderness. Amara gathered them close. For the first time in a long time, she thought of Damon without anger tightening her chest. Not because what he did was small. It was not. But because her life had become too full to let his betrayal remain the largest thing in it. Outside, the city glittered. Inside, 3 children fell asleep against their mother's heart. And in the quiet, Amara finally understood the inheritance her mother had wanted most for her. Not the company. Not the money. Not the chairwoman's seat. Freedom. The kind no one can sign away for you. The kind no mistress can steal. The kind no billionaire can understand until the woman he underestimated walks out with 1 suitcase, 3 unborn children, a $1 trillion empire behind her, and enough dignity to turn his downfall into justice instead of cruelty. Amara Vale had lost a husband, but she had found her name. And by the time Damon Kingsley realized what that name was worth, the whole world had already learned to stand when she entered the room.